Stuart, Byron. Stu had an older brother, Gordon, and a sister who was 12 years his senior. His sister, Jean, had 5 children. I'm the eldest of those children. My name's Barbara. I'm here from North Carolina, and I'm representing my other siblings, Carolyn and Bob from Colorado, and Nancy and Doug from New Jersey. And it's a great honor and a great responsibility to speak, and I only hope I can do Stu justice. When my mom was young, remember there's a 12-year age difference, she thought Stu was pretty pesky, mischievous, and useless. About as useful as a screen door on a submarine. To wit, our grandmother, Stu's mom, was hosting a group of Girl Scouts in her home, trying to teach them how to make a perfectly good bed. Square corners, smooth sheets. And all of a sudden, Stu came crashing through the ceiling from the attic onto that perfectly made bed. He had been told many times not to walk on that part of the attic. Mom said that verified her opinion of her about Stu. Since so many of you know Stu from recent decades, some things are clearly self-evident. He loved life, he lived it with zest, he had a genuine smile, a ready laugh, the love of a good joke, and friendly ribbing are most likely known to all of you. He was our role model for how to age and mature. We all loved him. You also know that Betty was the love of his life. He was proud of his children and their spouses. However, he positively lit up when talking about his grandchildren. Morgan and Cole, they stood heads above all other grandchildren. Some say the measure of a man is what he leaves behind. What difference did he make? I don't know what Stuart thought or wanted his legacy to be. His wife Betty and children Claire and Kevin are much better storytellers of that. But I want to share with you the unintended legacy he left our family, my siblings and I. To be clear, sometimes, well, really often, we do not know when something we have said or done has made an impact on an individual. So let me tell you a collection of stories from my siblings. The stories are of an engagement ring, a schoolyard tiff, a childhood game, a wedding, and a funeral. Disparate topics to be sure, but Stu is the glue that cements them in our collective hearts. As you know, Stu was in the Army. Stationed in Germany. What you don't know, and of course wouldn't know, is that when he came home from Germany, he stopped at our home. He told my mom and dad that he had met this most fabulous woman, and he met her on a bus tour of Italy, and she was an Army nurse stationed in Germany. Well, the adults went off to talk, as they normally do, and children are shuttled aside. And I remember my mom saying to my dad at the end of that evening, Betty's the one for Stu. It is so clear, and we are so happy that Stu found someone that makes him happy. And then she said to my dad, did you know he's getting her a ring from Tiffany's? Tiffany's? He's getting her a ring from Tiffany's. That is the dream of every woman, is to have a Tiffany's blue box. So the next morning, I asked Stu, Stu, why are you taking a ring from one girl and giving it to another? Stu was a bit confused, obviously. And I said, Tiffany, why are you taking Tiffany's ring and giving it to this girl in Germany? I think it was at that exact moment that Stu decided I was one French fry short of a Happy Meal. Clearly, I would never be the brightest bulb in the box, and he said to me right then and there, not so bright, are you? For 50 years, he has told me that in response to some not so bright things I did or did not do. So the unintended legacy is that it's kept me in my place, it's kept me honest. You can't hold yourself in high regard or be filled with puffery if you know that your uncle is right there, willing to stick it to you by saying, not so bright, are you? I will miss that. As for the schoolyard tiff, I was madder than a piano player in a marching band one day about something that had happened at school, and I spilled the story to Stu, he was visiting, about what I might do, and I was thinking revenge, as kids do, and Stu said, revenge is never the answer. It is kindness that lasts longer and matters more. Kindness matters. That is a goal my siblings and I have tried to reach every single days of our life. It's a great unintended legacy for us. The childhood game was hide and seek. Stuart was playing outside with my siblings. He hid, they sought. They did not find him, despite going by the driveway, the rose gardens, the patio, and the little greenhouse, searching all the little hidden places. And when time was up, Stu called them to the picnic table. And they protested, "You must have hidden inside the house. We couldn't find you anywhere." And that's clearly against the rules. But no, he had hidden by lying on the picnic bench in plain sight. They just never expected him to be there, and so they never saw him. His comment was that they had passed him by twice. Each of them had passed him by twice and never saw them. And they were to remember that sometimes the answer is directly in front of you. Sometimes the answer is directly in front of you. And that, so very many times, has been the answer to a vexing dilemma. What a useful, unintended legacy that was. Stu was a surrogate dad when our father was deployed overseas for a few years. And of course, he was the coolest dad because he was so young. And Stu has always been the Pied Piper for us, his nieces and nephews. He's the one we wanted to sit next to. He's the one we argued who got to go in the car with. And he's the one we wanted to hang around with. He taught my brother how to exit a diving board into the pool. And likewise for his 12 grandnieces and nephews, the children of my siblings. He was the one they gravitated toward, and he could be particularly persuasive. He was a bit too convincing for my sister Nancy's children. They were quite young. They were out at a restaurant, and he extolled the virtues of California. It was a paradise, and he invited them to visit. Being children, they accepted on the spot, could not be dissuaded that they could not go to California right that minute, and so what to do? He had issued the invitation, they accepted. He knew they were young enough that if he said, "Okay, let's go," they wouldn't leave their parents willingly, and so it would be over and done with. But off they trotted off. He's the Pied Piper. He loaded them into the rental car, and now, what do you do with 2 young children in a rental car in New Jersey, and you're supposed to go to California? He drove around the parking lot, circled the parking lot, stopped, opened the door and said, "You're here, it's California." And surprise, your parents are here. So a few years later, those same children were really getting ready to go to California, and they said to my sister, they said, they hoped it was a lot better than that parking lot. As for the wedding and the funeral, Stu stepped into the role of our dad twice more and in less happy times. Our father died just before my sister Carolyn's wedding. What do you do? Do you have the wedding? Do you not have the wedding? And Stu stepped in and became the father of the bride, proudly walking my sister down the aisle, serving as father of the bride at the reception, and a major support for my mom. He was there when we needed him the most. As for the funeral, well, our mom died almost 5 years ago, and all 5 siblings are middle-aged or a lot older, i.e. me, but we felt like orphans, and Stu and Betty stepped right in, righting our family ship and steering it during that terrible time. So Stu, Mom got it wrong all those years ago. You were not as useful as a screen door in a submarine. You were instead the steel door that kept us secure. You were always there when we needed you the most. You could be counted on, and our mom, your sister, knew that and loved you so much. So when we remember not to take ourselves seriously because we're not that bright, that some solutions are found in plain sight, that kindness matters, and that when you need support the most, Stuart was there. What a great unintended legacy we left our family. It's our deepest regret that we probably never fully expressed that to you. So Stu, if you're listening, hear it loud and clear. No matter what amount of time you have on this earth, there's always enough time to make a difference, and you did. We saw each other at a family reunion just 8 weeks ago, and when we parted, he said he was looking forward to the next reunion, never thinking it would not be with us, but rather in heaven with his parents, his brother, and his sister. I know they're up there sitting around, joking, laughing, ribbing each other and catching up on the news. But when God calls them back to work, then off to work they go. My mother, cleaning the cobwebs out of heaven, because Lord knows my mom knew how to clean. His brother Gordon giving advice to God on strategic investment opportunities. And Stu, well, Stu is doing what he did best, being a friend, volunteering, contributing, organizing, delegating, and probably serving as president of whatever heavenly association may have exists. So Stu, you're missed. You will continue to be missed. When things are tough down here for one of your family members, give them a squeeze on the shoulders so that you know that you're there for them. Because as you told me so very long ago, kindness matters.
Good morning. My name is Peter Byron, and I'm one of Stu Byron's nephews. And I would first like to say, on behalf of Aunt Betty, she wants all of you to know just how much she appreciates the notes, the cards, the comments, the expressions of love, the beautiful floral arrangements, and Aunt Betty loved gardening. She so much appreciates them. And as she said, Stu would be so impressed to see the outpouring of love for him. Indeed, Stu Byron was lovable. Well, as you heard, my dad was Stu Byron's older brother. And as you learned, Stu was one of 3 children of my grandma and grandpa Byron. First there was Jean, you just heard about my aunt, and then 2 years later, Gordon, my dad. All seemed right with the world. And 9 years later, surprise, it's Stuart. Now, based on family history that's been passed down over the years, it's been suggested, how do I say, this one was different. Now, it's not for me to determine what words best describe Stu Byron as a child. I wasn't there. I don't know. Someone said the word mischievous. Others might use the word tomfoolery. And I'm not saying Grandma and Grandpa Byron threw up their hands and said, what are we going to do with this one? I'm just sharing with you how this whole story got started. Let's just say, Stu Byron was full of life and ready to live it. Just this past family reunion, just a few months ago, I asked Stu what he remembered about growing up with my dad, Aunt Jean. And he said, oh, you know, the usual sibling stuff. And he said, well, I do remember one thing. You know, when you're the youngest, you have to go to bed like at 8 or 8:30. And of course, the older siblings would lie in wait for the hour of doom. And so when 8 o'clock came around, Mom and Dad, Stuart has to go to bed. And Stu told me that just rankled him. Because, you know, Grandma and Grandpa, his parents would say, oh, is it that late already? Oh, Stuart, time for bed. And he knew if the older siblings hadn't said anything, he could have stayed up later. Well, Stu got past all that, and soon was off to college and decided to go to Michigan State University for his master's degree, where his older brother and sister-in-law lived in the mid-Michigan area. Now, my mom, his sister-in-law, who can't be here today, has said so many times, Stuart was the kid brother she never had. And as my mom was an only child, she said Stu became even greater importance in her life. Even at our recent family reunion, my mom was pleased to be able to spend 10 days with Uncle Stuart and Aunt Betty. And she said, we just talked and laughed the whole time. I said, well, Mom, what did you guys talk about? I don't know, we just talked and laughed. My mom said Stu was not a brother-in-law, but more like a real brother. My older sister, Jennifer, a young girl, remembers Stu going to school at Michigan State University and coming over to the house on weekends to visit regularly. And as she said, I always look forward to Stu's visit, wanting him to pay attention to me. We heard that from Byron. As my sister said, he was old enough to be an adult, but young enough to be cool. Isn't that how all the nieces and nephews felt? He was the cool uncle. But my sister remembers something even more significant about Uncle Stuart's visits to our house. The impact he had on his brother, our dad. Our dad was a serious man who looked at life in serious ways and made serious decisions. But when Uncle Stuart was around, our dad, as my sister said, he was a different person. My dad would laugh, fool around, joke, forget the worries of the day. And as my sister said, Stu could transform you to step out of the seriousness of adulthood and into the happiness of life. There's another story of Stu when he was in college. Apparently, he and some of his college buddies wanted to get together and rent a house. And wouldn't it be great fun to live in a house with a bunch of guys going to school? And somebody suggested, well, we got to have a dog, a pet. So apparently they got a dog, and I guess they had to decide, well, what are you going to name this pet? Someone suggested, damn it. Come here, damn it. Oh, damn it. Sit, damn it. I can only imagine how much fun Stuart had with that. Now, being drafted into the Army took him away from Michigan State and into Europe. But during one of the leaves, he had some time off, and as you heard, took a tour of Italy. And as you read in Stu's obituary, he and Aunt Betty met on that tour in Italy. But what you may not know is what really brought them together. Aunt Betty's maiden name was Brian. Stu, Byron, Betty, Brian. So you can imagine at each stop along the way, the luggage would end up in the other person's room, and she's not laughing. Uncle Stuart must have thought that was a gift from heaven. Let your imagination run wild with the opening lines. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm Stu Byron. Do you happen to have my socks? Next day, new city, new hotel. Next day, switch. Knock, knock, knock. Me again. Are these yours? Yeah, Betty, get out of here, you beast! The tour and the laughs lasted 51 years. Well, soon enough, I came along into this picture and started my own relationship with Uncle Stuart. But let's just say it got off to a rocky start. Literally a rocky start. My first memory of Uncle Stuart was at his own wedding in 1961. I was a mere 6 years old and didn't know anything about weddings. And in the hecticness of the wedding day, all the adults are off doing certain things and leaving the kids behind to be bored. But I had a newfound friend in my 12-year-old cousin, Bobby. And of course, as we all know, 12-year-old boys can be trusted to use good judgment when leading around a 6-year-old. So Bobby and I found our way to the back of the motel to only find a very large pile of rocks. Soon we're scrambling up the rocks, king of the hill, having a great time. And then Bobby came up with this idea. I want to make it clear, it was his idea. How about throwing rocks over the motel? And when you're 6, that's genius. Now this is a motel. 1 story, all the rooms are lined up. You park in front of your room, you go inside. So of course we began throwing the rocks over the motel, the time of our lives. I don't know exactly what happened from the last rock to my parents shaking me. What were you thinking? Evidently, someone had tipped off Uncle Stuart that the laws of gravity were pulling the rocks down on his prized Carmen Ghia sports car. Now, I guess by the moment you all know, automobiles and Stu Byron have a very special relationship. Owning a car for Stu Byron was like owning the Mona Lisa for the rest of us. One treats one's car as a masterpiece, cleaning, polishing, waxing the car. It's the utmost importance. Such care is more of a religious ceremony than simply maintenance. I can only imagine Stu walking over to his brother and sister and looking at them and saying, "What the hell are these kids doing?" Well, the wedding took place, and we had a great time. And one of Stu Byron's personal characteristics showed through. Forgiveness. And he did. I'm still around. Well, the years went by. Aunt Betty and Uncle Stuart were generous each Christmas with a Christmas gift. And what kid doesn't want a Christmas gift under the tree? But what kid wants to write a thank you card? You've all been there? Dear Aunt Betty and Uncle Stuart, thank you for the Christmas gift. I liked it. It snowed last night up here. But you know, the older I got, the more I realized just how much fun Uncle Stuart was. And I thought, well, he's so much fun, I could return the fun, couldn't I? As you heard, his name is Charles Stuart Byron. Next Christmas, dear Aunt Betty and Uncle Chuck. How much fun would that be? Certainly unexpected. Well, it was. And unwelcomed. Forgiveness number 2. And just last year at Aunt Betty's and Uncle Stuart's 50th wedding anniversary, Stuart was kind enough to loan Aunt Betty's car to us to drive around errands, do whatever we wanted. Now, it's a kind gesture, especially coming from someone who is just a little particular about their cars. After all, who else do you know that carpets their garage floor? Uncle Stuart does. And his carpet is cleaner than the carpet in my house. How did he do that? Well, indeed, we did use Aunt Betty's car. Now, that was the night of the big 50th party, so we're all going to get together. You go to a party and take something, a bottle of wine or something. So we stopped and did a few things. We didn't realize the cork in the bottle of wine was defective. We soon learned an entire bottle of red wine had spilled all over the back seat of Aunt Betty's car. Just a slight mishap. There were white caps of red wine sloshing around the floor pan of the back seat as we drove. What to do? It reeked of stale wine. To the rescue. Son Kevin, son-in-law Al, moved into action. A wet, dry shop vacuum, cleansers, stain removers, carpet cleaner, and a hair dryer. In less than an hour, it's back to new. Uncle Stuart would never know the difference. I'm eternally grateful to you guys. And I'm not sure he would forgive me again. But as we all grew older, our family get-togethers took on new meaning. Memories of love and togetherness, laughter, connecting, good feelings. I remember at Stu's niece's wedding, which you heard about, Carolyn. Stu wearing a big cowboy hat, smoking a cigar, spending as much time with Gary's family as he did with his own. That was Uncle Stuart, a part of everybody's family. I remember Uncle Stuart at his nephew Doug's wedding, where Stu danced with his 93-year-old mother, moving her around the dance floor like she was 30 years younger. You should have seen the smile on her face. What a great memory for both of them. And I remember at my own wedding, the impression Uncle Stuart left on our guests. To this day, my best man and my brother-in-law and his wife still say to us, "So how's Uncle Stu?" They don't say, "How's your Uncle Stuart?" They say, "How's Uncle Stu?" almost 30 years later, and having a single interaction with Stu Byron, these people think of Stu Byron as their own uncle. And when they ask, it's always with a big smile. If Grandma and Grandpa Byron thought, this one is different, they were absolutely right. Stu Byron was different. He could touch the heart of anyone within just a few minutes, and their memory of him always brought a smile to their face. And Stu loved family, moving to Mission Viejo to be closer to his beloved family of Kevin, Suzanne, Claire, and Al. And of course, the gleam in his eye, Morgan and Cole, his grandchildren. It was indeed a most perfect setting, a beautiful place with a beautiful family. But you know, there's one area of Stu Byron that doesn't get talked about very much, and he didn't usually bring it up. And that was his career. Many of you here probably don't know a lot about it. Stu Byron was in the textiles and floor covering business for many years, working for Milliken for a very long time. And last year, when we were all together, I asked Stu, I said, Stu, tell me about your work career. I didn't know a lot about it. And he told me about working for Milliken. And he said that he had left Milliken at one point. And I said, yeah, I kind of remember that, but didn't you go back to Milliken? And he said, yeah, I did, although I was very surprised. Well, I said, well, why were you surprised? He said, well, there was an unwritten rule at Milliken. As long as you were an employee, you were a member of the Milliken family. If you ever chose to leave Milliken, you were not welcomed back. Now, Roger Milliken, the owner of the company, did keep a very private and a very short list of former employees that if they ever did want to come back, they would be welcomed. Stu Byron's name was on that list. I think it speaks volumes of just how strong Stu Byron was as a total person. His value, his contribution, his talents were so respected by Roger Milliken himself that he had Stu Byron's name on the back of his door. Stu Byron was different. You know, there's a room full of people here today. If each one of us was analyzed and studied, I'm sure we'd find that there's a whole range of personalities and styles and likes and dislikes and ages and where we work and where we live and our families. Very different. Polar opposites, probably. But Stu Byron could connect with every one of us. One test of Stu Byron's character and contribution to the world could be said this way. How did you feel? I feel great right now. How did you feel before you spent time with Stu Byron? And then ask yourself, how did you feel after spending 5 minutes with him? And the answer is always the same. You felt better. Life just seemed a little easier to take. You felt just a little happier. You felt just a little more relaxed. There was that unexplainable smile on your face. Stu Byron was different. And let's all thank God he was. Stu Byron, the creative, natural child, was never outgrown. Stu Byron, he could transform you to step out of the seriousness of adulthood and into the happiness of life. We miss you, Uncle Stuart.